Welcome to the Old Mac Gang Podcast, or OMG, the show where longtime Mac and Apple users share practical tips, hard-earned wisdom, and honest opinions for age-seasoned Apple fans. I'm Marty Gensius, a longtime Mac user, podcaster, counselor, educator, and professional button clicker. I've got the buttons in front to switch all these cameras that we have on our great panel. I've lived through a lot of Apple transitions, including the most recent with iOS 26, which is what we're going to be talking about tonight, and the reactions that we have to different aspects of iOS 26. So get your iPhones out, and you'll hear some opinions from this panel regarding that. Let's hear from the folks on the panel.
Hi, I'm Peter. I'm a 73-year-old Apple enthusiast from Bay Village, Ohio, a former foundryman and educator, and currently retiree. I enjoy chatting about all the gear and gizmos I have and gear and gizmos I wish I had, especially with this old gang in our audience. Chris.
Hey, good evening. I'm Chris. I started out with the Mac in 1984 and spent about 9 years with the Apple user groups, and then had a chance to work for Apple. And after that, I moved on and did some university IT. And now I'm retired, living in Tucson with lots of Apple toys, and love hanging out with this panel. Charlie?
Hi, I'm Charlie Lindahl. I'm 70 years old. I live in Houston, Texas. And I've been a Mac person since 1984 also. I have a MacBook Pro. I have a MacBook Air. I got the AirPod 3s, which I absolutely love, and they're much better than the 4s in my opinion. And I have a watch, Apple. I have a Series 10 watch, and I'm thinking about going ahead and getting an M4. Either Mini or Pro. Haven't decided yet.
Hi, I'm Bob Wood, and I'm also in Tucson, and happy to be part of this group and part of the Tucson Macintosh user group. I've been part of user groups for going on 30 years now. Back to you, Marty.
All right. So as I mentioned earlier, we're going to talk about iOS 26, which has kind of made its full release. They're still adding things to it, and developer betas, which I'm on, I get. But there's a public release of it, so people can kind of get into iOS and enjoy some of the aspects of it. So we've prepared a lot of really good websites for you to check out. The websites will be in the show notes. And once you get into the show notes, you can see the links that we're talking about here. But I'm just going to review them quickly in order for folks who are watching it on the video can see it. And again, you'll be able to find the links within the show notes. This comes out of Apple's Newsroom, and it's kind of an announcement that happened with regard to Apple's new iPhone experience with iOS 26. One out of MacRumors that talks about all of that we know about with Apple's next generation operating system for iOS and what's new. Then Macworld comes out with a guide that just this week, an iOS 26 guide, new features, and the latest iPhone update and what's coming with iOS 26.3 when that comes up. And then some information that occurred this last week with iOS 26 messages and apps finds 5 great new group chat features. This is from 9 to 5 Macs. And then MacRumors had an article this last week about what's new in iOS 26.3 so far and the kinds of things that you can do with iOS 26. And then also just a user guide that Apple has set up. We have a link to that from support that talks about user guides. And this is particularly iOS 26, what's new and what kind of things can you do with that platform. There was also a article that came out recently that was showing some concern about the adoption level of iOS 26 on iPhones and it being low compared to previous iOS releases where people kind of suck up the new release right away, and some ideas about why that might be occurring. So we've got a lot of good articles, directly links for you within the show notes of the video or show notes of the audio version of the show in the podcast. Just look for them and it will take you to those links. So we've got a good panel assembled, and we're going to start with the first question. And actually, there's a guy named Steve who listens to us. He's out in Oregon, and I know him through other user groups. And he posed this question. He wanted the old Mac gang to talk about liquid glass. He wanted to know what our thoughts were on liquid glass. So that led us down this path to talk about iOS 26, and liquid glass is a big part of it. So first question, and I'll skip my part, and maybe I'll pick up at the end after this. But and so we'll start with Peter. What was your first reaction to liquid glass?
Well, it certainly made things feel new, not necessarily better in any particular way, but certainly different. And I like novelty, so I was okay with that. It has been easy enough along the iOS 26 way to turn off any features, any liquid glass features that friends find annoying and don't like, which I think is also nice. I frequently switch lock screens and home screen backgrounds and wallpaper to achieve a feeling of freshness and novelty. So my personal reaction to the features that were included in iOS 26 there, and those are particular liquid glass features, was okay. But really, if I think about it overall, I think it's pretty much meh. It's not, I could take it or leave it for the most part.
Yeah. Chris?
Well, I've always thought of myself as a software guy as opposed to hardware, and particularly an OS guy. And I've always been interested in user interface, what the user sees, and user experience, what the user does with that interface. And so I was really interested when liquid glass was first introduced. I thought, wow, this looks really cool. They've really thought this through, et cetera, et cetera. And I looked forward to getting the first public beta. But I ran into almost immediately readability problems that became very prevalent very quickly with the first public beta. And particularly because I had my own wallpaper, a lot of which was my own photography, and they had light colored backgrounds. And, that interface just doesn't do well on light backgrounds, or didn't. And so we saw successive, how can I say this, ways to turn down liquid glass throughout the betas. I think we had about 3 different steps. They were saying, well, you can reduce your transparency, you can increase your contrast, and then they came up with a couple of other ones. And by the time it was actually the release version, it wasn't too bad, but I was left with this wonder why they didn't anticipate this pushback, because it was really obvious from the first public beta. And so at any rate, but where it is now, I'm pretty much okay with it. I've turned a lot of stuff off. So, Charlie?
I agree with Peter's meh comment, but I did turn off a lot of transparency and the fancy animations and all that stuff. I just found them as distractions. Other than that, I'll go with Peter's meh.
I found it to be not as bad or scary as advertised. I did the reduced transparency thing, and it's fine for me now. I did not change any settings on Watch OS 26, and it's all right. I even took the big step of installing Mac OS on my secondary MacBook Air and tested a few important third-party apps and have no problems as of yet. Marty?
Yeah, I like new things like Peter, and change kind of doesn't bother me. New coats of paint, new ways to do things, and I never reflect on what things used to be. And I think part of the issues was the immediate press that this thing got. I have adjusted to liquid glass. There are now settings where you can change it. You can change the intensity. And I do that, but then it kind of feels like I've got the same old operating system that I used to have when I make those changes. One of the things that I did early on was I switched all of my backgrounds to either black or started using dark mode. And part of using dark mode was and I do that on my desktop, is that it reduces the reflection on my glasses when I'm doing podcasts. If you have a lot of white screens or a lot of white windows up, you'll eventually catch the reflection of it through your glasses. And I have non-glare glasses, so that also helps it. So I got used to having really dark backgrounds. And frankly, liquid glass works better on dark backgrounds, as Chris had suggested, that it doesn't work so well with really bright photography and discerning that. So I think the bad press is more people are interested in hearing bad things about Apple than hearing good things about Apple. It kind of satisfies a need that they have, that even the big guys can fail every once in a while too. So I like it. I mean, I'm good. I'm fine with it. I like the change. And I want to get on to iOS 26 so people can start complaining about something new, because I'm tired of hearing the complaints about it. We're going to go to the second question, which is, which iOS 26 feature feels the most useful in daily life and which feels kind of unnecessary? Peter.
There are two features, iOS 26 features, not liquid glass features, that I've really been enjoying. The first is call screening. It has nearly eliminated spam calls for me, which is just wonderful. And second, perhaps an odd choice, there is a stretchy clock lettering. It doesn't care whether it's liquid or not, which on the lock screen, and for the most part, I think stretched letters look rather odd and I don't like them. But if you stretch letters just a teeny bit, the widgets jump from just under the time to the bottom of the screen, which for certain wallpapers make it look, in my mind, especially cool. So I like features that customize and personalize my phone. And so I like that extra control over the widgets in the same way that you can place tiles anywhere now. My widgets, for your information, because I'm a fan of widgets, it was one that says, please return this phone to me, and it has my email address and my wife's phone number. And I'm absent-minded sometimes, and I've left my phone somewhere and someone knows how to get it back to me without doing much of anything. And a widget that jumps to the weather and it shows the temperature, highs and lows, and one that shows how I'm doing on my to-do list and jumps to the list if I need to. So those are my favorites. I don't really have any that I think are unnecessary, because things that are unnecessary, I guess I just don't use. Chris.
Well, I agree with Peter on the call screening. I mean, that's been a game changer for me because I was deluged with spam and phishing calls and stuff. And hold assist is another one that is really helpful. It detects when you're on hold and gives you the phone back, or at least turns off the bloody hold music. If I never heard any more hold music in this incarnation, I'd be happy. In terms of stuff I don't use, I mean, I use all the Apple Intelligence features. We talked about that lots before. The unified call screens just didn't do a thing for me, where it combined voicemail and recent calls and everything all at once, and it just looked like a huge mess for me. So I use the traditional screens in the phone app. But what do you think, Charlie?
Adding AI to everything, that's good and bad. But my best features, the call handling is phenomenal. I mean, being able to screen screen the caller and then just being able to throw it out if I need to. I think that's great. And I also use the hold assist, and like Chris, if you get the hold music, it automatically kicks in, and then it tells you when the hold music is over. And I love that. The other thing is the photo app has some interesting UI changes, which I find to be pretty good. And Chris, I'd like to ask your impressions of that because you're a photographer. And the last thing is the fact that they added preview as an app in the iPhone is huge, because you can go into you can put something on the clipboard from anywhere, and then go to preview and say post from clipboard, and it's wonderful, and it's full blown preview. So you can forward it, you can put it as PDF, you can save it locally, all that kind of stuff. I love the fact that it has. I think that was a very good move.
Bob?
I'm still kind of finding my way around the interface. I did not update to iOS 26 until I think after everybody else here did. I like the idea of call screening and hold assist, but I haven't had it kick in as yet. Maybe I'm just antisocial and nobody calls me. Marty?
I don't think that's true, Bob. I think you're very social. I have, I add things right away. And then people ask me the next day, well, how do you like it? It's like, well, I really haven't played it. I've just added it in. So what happens to me is I start to discover things that are different on my phone. And in this case, call screening information was really kind of wild to be able to have that. And that's cut out a lot of me attempting to quickly respond to what turn out to be spam calls or junk calls. And yes, I use a spam tracker and all that sort of stuff, but even so, this is my gripe not with iOS, it's my gripe with providers. My doctor, please put on your call line, identify your business so I know it's you. It's not some spam caller or some unknown caller from Akron. It's just, if people would get on the page, it would make it even a better kind of piece of the information for me. So when I open my phone and I see that I've gotten calls from different scenarios, I can get a nice summary of information of calls that have happened. Also, message summaries, the same sort of thing. When people message me, it comes up on my home screen and lets me know, I might be working or I might be teaching or doing something like that. And then I go to check my phone and I see that people have been texting me and I've got a nice message summary on there. Lock screen customizations are really cool. And because of that, I've done some things and I don't know if this function was in here before, but I've got some photos of pets. I've got some photos of places I've been to, and you can establish what do you want as your rotating lock screen background. And so it surprises me because a picture will come up and I'm like, where's it? Oh yeah, that's when we went to Scotland years ago. And it's a nice background for whatever is on the phone. So that Peter talked about it, but the kind of things that are happening with customization and also the dimensionality of it, the fact that you can kind of turn that screen to the side and turn it to the side, and your dog, it's like you're looking past your dog to whatever is in the background. It really is kind of neat. And then something simple that I Didn't know that it was a feature of 26, but the idea that you can copy messages. I will get into a text message with my daughter, and she'll want to know how her uncle's doing health wise, whatever. And I'll write a long message to her and realize I'm going to get the same question from my wife, or I'm going to get the same question from somebody else. And instead of doing group texts, I can just copy that message from my daughter, paste it in. Maybe I have to edit a few pieces here and there, but it's so much more convenient than with a copy than having to retype the whole message. So I like it. I haven't run into things that I don't like. There's a constant frustration I have with iOS, which will be one of the answers to the questions I have coming up. So let's go on to the next question. Why do you think iOS adoption has been slower than past updates? We refer to that article that came out in TechRadar. It's also been mentioned in other stories too about this slower adoption of iOS 26. Peter.
Well, I guess it's more of a guess than anything else, but I imagine from the friends of mine that I've talked to that it's the liquid glass makeover. I have heard a lot of normal folk complain about that. And obviously, some of their complaints hit people before they had a chance to level up, and they didn't. I've heard almost as many complaints. I mean, there's certain things people don't like change. And I remember a lot of people complaining to me about the unified call page in the phone app, which can be very easily turned off. In fact, you don't even need to go into the settings. There's a thing right there on the page where you can switch back to the old way. But from the people I've talked with, it's real substantial resistance. And even my daughter, who's pretty tech savvy, was sort of railing to me about being required to update by her employer, who provides one of the phones she uses. And I think there's a lot of unhappy campers out there among this smaller than normal legion of adopters. I suspect that when 26.4 comes out with the new emoji, everybody's going to switch over.
Because of
Chris.
the emoji?
Absolutely.
That's the feature I really don't care about in terms of it, but to each his own. Chris, what's your thoughts about why do you think iOS 26 adoption has been slow?
Let me throw in one more quick thought about the cool things in iOS 26, and that is you can have custom backgrounds for message threads. I have embarrassed myself more than once by sending a message that may be opinionated to the wrong person. And this will really help with that, because what I've done is gone in and give people different images. I assign usually one of my landscape photos, but it could be anything. And that way I could keep the thread straight as to who it is. And I found that to be really helpful because I do a ton of texting now. In fact, I probably do more going out as text than as emails these days. So anyway, kudos to Apple. That was a really cool idea. I kind of agree with Peter that, the liquid glass, I think, is what people have heard about it has slowed them down. I think there may be something else going on in terms of not getting enough information or understanding what a game changer the call screening and hold assist are. And I'm not sure who is responsible for that, whether it's Apple marketing hasn't marketed that enough, or but the other thing is I think people are just really busy, and maybe they don't want to spend a lot of time playing with their phone, and they just want it to work the way it's going to work out of the box, or maybe they just don't like playing around with settings. But yeah, I'm surprised the adoption rate was so low, and I should think with the Siri editions that would bring it back again. But other than that, don't know what to say. What do you think, Charlie?
I have a couple of things. The first is the RAM required for 26. There are a lot of people that don't have have earlier than iPhone 15 and maybe have 64 gig or even 32 gig in the bloody things. So you can't upgrade on some of the older phones where it seems like that's the case. The inconvenience of the update process, I mean, for us, it's not a problem, but most people don't understand the update process. And to me, when you go to look at it and stuff, and it says, "Do you want to do this? Do you want to do this?" And it seems a little confusing, frankly, in my opinion. Um, and liquid gas, I don't think there's a particular advantage to it. As I said, I'm kind of meh on the fancy effects and the screen lookout and all that kind of stuff. But I don't think that that's a reason to be able to go to it. And the other thing, fear of the update process failing. And again, I think I point to, may not have enough RAM, although it should detect that. But anyway, there could be a fear that trying to be upgraded in the middle of it, it'll crash and burn. So anyway,
Okay. Bob.
Well, I think that the tech press, in their zeal to try to get clicks, they overhyped the bad issues of liquid glass. And that kept many people from upgrading at their normal pace. Perhaps it's starting to turn around now. Recently, I heard about a member of our Mac user group who was unable to upgrade due to, oh, there's no room. Others may others may be in the same boat and need to learn about iCloud photo storage and the ability to automatically offload seldom used apps. And maybe that will get them the ability to upgrade to iOS 26. Marty?
Yeah, I agree on the whole idea about the press driving this issue. It's either if you're meh about it, or if you like it, or particularly if you have problems with it, or you haven't even tried it yet. The press is about sharing what they think are the problems with the platform. And that makes for much more interesting reading than, as I said, here's all the wonderful things the iPhone can do now. There were also some initial hiccups. If you look at 26.1, or it was 26, and then they did 26.01. The rollout has been kind of weird because they've had to fix some of the stuff right away in terms of upgrading and releases. And when that kind of hits, then people are like, we're just going to wait until 2 or 3 or even 4 before we feel comfortable upgrading to iOS 26. So, yeah, some definite issues with that. I think of folks who are iPhone users who don't upgrade every year, who hold on to a phone for a long period of time, and they bought memory at a 256 gigabyte phone or 124 gigabyte was perfectly fine for them 5 or 6 phones ago. But then they start shooting photos, and although it might be capable of being upgraded to iOS 26, the memory's not there because the memory is filled with a bunch of other stuff. And so it's sort of not only know how to use your system to offload some of those photos, but you really need to overbuy your storage when you get a new phone, because it's not just the storage for now, it's the storage that you'll be dealing with 2, 3, 4 years from now that can be part of the issues in terms of upgrades. So, yeah, all points well taken. We've got a final question for our group. Looking ahead, what would you want Apple to prioritize in iOS 27?
Oh, there are a couple old drums I love to beat here. Two things: interface consistency and bug fixes. I think that usability can be improved both within and between devices. And this usability is a long time Apple advantage that I think they need to be sure to keep nurturing and growing. Every time I go to a conference, as I did earlier this month, I try to assess a rough measure of operating system design by comparing how well Mac users compare to Window users when they encounter various tech challenges up there on the podium. Uh, Earlier this month, the good guys remain ahead, but the margin slipped a little by this measure. So I think it's time for Apple to get back at some of these fundamentals. Chris.
Yeah, Peter, you alluded in a previous show that you hoped that iOS 27 would be more like Snow Leopard, and it looks like you're going to get your wish from what the rumors are saying. And we've also got, perhaps some new hardware we're going to integrate in this year, and of course, Siri. And so there's news today, and we probably don't have time to talk about that tonight, but we'll see what's going on with that integration and what that's actually going to involve. So um, I think, for those who may not remember, there was leopard and then there was snow leopard. And actually, before that, there was lion and there was mountain lion in the Mac OS releases. And, in each case, the snow animal was the follow on bug fix, make everything tie together better kind of release. And so, I think that's what we're all hoping for in terms of iOS 27. But we'll see, Apple's Apple. So we'll see what else they've got up their sleeves. Charlie?
Anyway, my wishes are less intrusive AI. It's okay to have it, but having it to pop up when I upgraded to iOS 26, I was getting pop-ups all the time. Do you want to use AI? Do you want to use AI? Please don't keep bugging me on that. Anyway, I'm really looking forward to really exercising the live translation stuff with my AirPod 3s, and so far it's been pretty good. And Chris, I think you've been using that too, so I'd be curious to hear your comments at some point. Um, Also, frankly, I know this is a Mac broadcast, but I've got Linux all over the place. And I would really like to see if there's a better effort to integrate with Android and Linux and be able to provide things. And I noticed there was an iPhone transition from Android that's been introduced. And the last thing is a better way to search and archive text messages. I mean, iMessage, fine, you can click on it and say save, or you can copy and paste. But I'm going to be writing some hopefully simple utilities that I'll throw a little GUI around it and stuff that'll do things like get all the messages that Chris has sent me in the last month and store it into a single folder on my drive. And I haven't found that capability anywhere. And I'd love to have that happen in iOS 26. And like I said, I'm going to use my copious spare time to write some utilities like that.
Bob.
I'm going to echo what has been said before. I want to see some bud fixes. Bud fixes? How about bug fixes? And better integration between all of the OS 27s. I was about to mention Snow Leopard, but Chris beat me to it. How about less eye candy and more solid programming, along with AI? If not homegrown AI, then a white label AI with another provider, such as Google. If they did go to Google, Apple would then need to give back some of the big money that they get from Google for their search engine placement. That's what I got. Marty?
Yeah, well, rumor is they passed on Perplexity and they got into different opinions with OpenAI, and they are, and I have to be careful in saying this, they are asking Google to help them with their model, that they will be using a Google model in order to do what they're going to do with AI. That doesn't mean they're using Gemini. It means they're using a Google model to, I think, bridge the gap between what they currently have and what they hope to have in 2 to 5 years, with where they'll be able to do their own freestanding AI. But I can go on too long to talk about that. What do I want to prioritize in iOS 27? I want less. I can remember like 10 things about each app, if anything. And each year they just keep piling on more things and more things. And there's none of them that make me go, I can't, I have to have this now because I couldn't live with my life without it before. And I certainly can't live with it without it now. Most of the stuff is just kind of extra little, pieces that really don't impact the way in which I'm going to use the device. So I think operating systems have gotten too cluttered with crap like that I can't remember, and I won't remember with the next operating system. I will tell you something, and this is the part I tried to say earlier, that I wish they would fix for a long, long time. And to my mind, I don't know how to solve this problem, but they haven't done really anything to fix it, is organizing your apps on the iPhone. It is so clumsy. Got to press it, got to get the jiggle, got to get the drag, figure out where you want to drag it to. It is such a tedious method in order to organize the apps, and their platform hasn't done anything to improve that over the years and over the various operating systems. So I don't expect to see it in iOS 27. There are probably third-party apps where you can do things with that, but I kind of want it directly built in, and I'm seeing Chris has got something on that.
Yeah, Marty, I'll second that. There was a way back in the day where you could plug your iPhone in and see it from the Finder, and you could organize your windows, and you could organize your apps and your windows the way you wanted to. Now it's very much of a hit and miss process, and then apps end up in different places, and sometimes pages go off and come back, and it is a little hit or miss. I mean, I could see why. I've heard of people that will have their home screen and the next page is the app library, and they don't have any other intervening windows.
Well,
my life
God
on
bless
my
them.
phone doesn't work that way. Yeah, exactly. Right.
Yeah.
But I wish we could just bring back that Finder interface where we could just reorganize what the heck we want to do, and make it a lot cleaner. I think people would like the phones a lot more too, because I think a lot of people just have all these jumbled apps and they can't remember what half of them are that they're using.
Yeah, I don't want to have to plug my phone into a device in order to fix the apps on my phone. I think there was a time where you could plug it into, where you needed to plug it into your device, do anything really, and then kind of you could move it around from multiple screens, and that was cool. But I think for people who that's their device, the iPhone, they need to come up with a solution that works for that platform without having to do any other type of interface to fix it. So that's our feelings about iOS 26. Any final comments about the questions and the platforms? Okay. Hearing none, I want to thank our panel, Bob, Chris, Peter, and Charlie, for joining us. As part of the Old Mac gang, the whole gang is back together again. Sorry about last week. I was under the weather, and at the last minute, had to cancel the show because I wasn't getting anywhere or getting out of bed, let's put it that way. But I appreciate folks who've come back this week and are listening to us. And, if you have any questions, you can always email us at thepodtalknetwork@gmail.com. And Charlie, do you have something to add?
Just real quick, I'm so glad you recovered.
Oh, well, that's kind.
Okay.
That's kind. Yeah, so am I. I'm glad that I recovered too. It was a infection eventually, and I had to take some medication to take care of that. But that's a little more information than I wanted in the outro. So you can email us at thepodtalknetwork@gmail.com. Our website is thepodtalk.net, where you can find out about all the different podcasts that we do. And please come and join us live or at any time. You can find us on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@oldmacgang is our YouTube channel for this show and previous shows. If you want to listen to them, also you can find it on all of your podcatcher services that you have. Thanks to Peter, Chris, Charlie, and Bob for the conversation, and thank you for being part of the Old Mac Gang.